Hey, this is Judah Mantel from SceneForge Studio, and this is going to be another showcase of coming soon features in SceneForge. So none of these are quite available just yet, but they're in development and will be coming soon to future releases. So let's jump right in. Previously, I was kind of considering including a bunch of pre-made VFX elements, like fire, explosions, and things like that. Just included like any other object using the Create menu. But I didn't really like this because it didn't have the customization that I really wanted from SceneForge. And yes, up until now, there hasn't been a way to add VFX elements and particle systems, but that's what I'm going to show off today. So in future releases, there's a new element, a new object type called VFX element. And you can move this around like any other element. We have this little orb here. This is just for us in the editor, but the camera won't actually see it. As you can see here, it just sees the effect. So you can see it has this like emitter with these particles coming out of it. And in the properties, you can turn it on or off. But most importantly is that you can open up the VFX Editor. So I'm going to open that up and you can see what I mean. So this is a node-based editor, meaning that unlike, let's say, the visual settings, which is just a list of a bunch of different options, this is now a system where you have a master node with different inputs, and you can add nodes with different types of outputs. So for example, I can bring in a value node and set this to 10. And all I have to do is plug this into the, let's say, spawn rate. Plug this into the spawn rate socket. And you'll see now they'll spawn 10 particles per second. And the reason for this is, as opposed to a list of UI elements, is one, it's a lot more customizable. It's a little bit easier to wrap your head around. But it also makes it easy to link up different properties to each other. So for example, if I wanted the size to be linked up to the spawn rate, I could feed, let's say, these two things to be the same. So now both the spawn rate and the particle size will be a random value between 0.2 and 1. And so on. So I think particle size, for example, makes a lot more sense to be a random value, but the spawn rate clearly doesn't. But I still do want to have them to be associated with each other in some way. So I'm going to go to Math, and I'm going to bring the output into, let's see this. I'm going to bring this into a value node, and you can see we can kind of create little trees of values here that kind of, I guess, create the path, the flow of the data that you want to use. So now I can pass in, I'll reload this, and you can see that it gives me a random value. I'll make this between 1 and 2 now. And as I refresh it, you see this becomes a random value, and I can bring in another value node. I'm going to multiply this by 2. And you can see now it'll always multiply whatever this value is by 2. So now the spawn rate is going to be over here. So it's just an easy way to set up different types of value systems. On the other side of things, down here, we have, let's say, the color and the texture. So we can go to Add Node, Visuals, and we'll bring in a color. And you can slot this into here and open this up and select a color. And even cooler, if I delete this, is that we can add a gradient. This is one of my favorite new features. We can slot this into color. Now when I open this up, we can control the opacity over time. So I want it to, let's say, start invisible. And then over here, it's going to fade in. And over here, it's going to fade out. So you can see now when it disappears, you get a nice gradual fade. And of course, I can also set the color to, let's say, start red, then turn green, and end off really subtly on a blue. So you can see that happening over time, over the particle's lifetime. Of course, it can also add a texture. So I'm going to add a texture node. I'm going to pass this into here. See, now we don't have a texture applied, but if I were to select a texture file, let's select one from my downloads. That's going to be this particle texture. You can see now we have this, system here. Now in the future, it's not quite set up. The material is going to be a little more dynamic. So of course it removes the background. It'll be transparent, and you can set random rotations and all that stuff. So this is very much a work in progress, but the functionality is here and it is coming soon. And it makes it really easy to create some really interesting things. And what's interesting is that this system can be used to control the flow of any other type of data as well. So maybe it might even come to, let's say, the visuals menu, or if you want to add, let's say, the time of day to be linked up to the weather or something like that. Or even the timeline, adding some sort of other types of animations, and certainly the chroma key compositing certainly benefits from a node-based editor, as many chroma key systems use generally. But that's all stuff coming in the future. This is kind of just what I wanted to show off in this video. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.